Hello everybody. Welcome to our continuing series on chart delineation. We've got Eva here with me, and our guest presenters today are going to be Victor, Yvonne, and Brett. So I'm excited
Welcome
about
everybody.
them. Let me go through really quickly. We've got the how to participate. You guys all know the drill. You've been with us several times before. Type the chat in there. Keep yourself on self-mute. Oops. Lift your hand up when you have a question. And there we go. Okay. We're not going to provide any slides this time because all it is basically new is the three charts of the three presenters. We will pause at certain points to take any questions as we go through the three presenters, and any follow-up questions, if necessary, are going to be posted to the Campus Student Union. Okay, so let's get this show on the road. Victor, would you care to tell us about your chart, please?
Hi there. Yes, I guess we could start with the elements, I guess. You see I've got a lot of fire there, earth, air, a little bit of water, but fire is the strongest element in my chart. Let's go to the quadrants, well, the hemispheres. I've got 5 and 6 in the 5 in the southern hemisphere and 6 in the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is more or less extroverted tendencies, and the northern hemisphere is introverted. They're pretty well balanced. I'd say that that's pretty much true with me in my life. I'm pretty much, I can be in either mode of dealing with people or being solo, so I don't see any problem with that aspect in my life. The quadrants, well, I guess the east and west, there's a little bit of a difference there between the eastern hemisphere is count 3 and the western hemisphere is count 8. Perhaps the 8 count in the western hemisphere for group-initiated activities might be strong in this area to probably help push me to be more outgoing rather than introverted. And I think that's pretty much happening with the way that I'm hooking up with Moy Federation and some other groups that are related to increasing consciousness and that sort of thing. I'm kind of going away from groups that are dealing with, you know, like social groups and that sort of thing that I was participating in a lot when I was younger. So in the quadrants, I see a couple quadrants there, both have counts of 4. One is inner security and relationships, and the other one is worldly issues in society. The count in the fourth one, houses 10 to 12, has a count of 1, public service, extroverted self-initiated activity, and then the first quadrant, count of 2, fostering self-development, self-concern, introverted, self-initiated activity. I don't see that myself. I don't see why those numbers are like that. Perhaps that's the way I came into this world, but I don't see it as that's the way it is now. I see that there's a lot more emphasis in my life now on the 1 and the 2 quadrants. I see those 2 as being pretty dominant in my life right now. So perhaps that's changed over the lifetime.
Well, one of the reasons that that may not apply is because the left side of the circle, or the left side of the chart, is independence and initiating activity, and you have 4 planets in Aries, and Aries is exactly that, initiating activity. So it kind of balances the fact that you don't have a lot of planets in that side.
Okay. Then if we can go on to my moon. Moon is past lives and ancestors and that type of thing. I guess in my early childhood and everything, I did have a lot of emotional issues and a lot of arrogance and those negative attributes that are associated with those, Mars, Moon, those issues, and first ray issues. But over the lifetime, I think those have been pretty well resolved and balanced. So, of course, we have the moon opposite Libra, Aries to Libra axis, which is, I guess, dealing from self to others and bringing balance in. We have, let me look at my other chart. I'm trying to look at the one on the screen, and that doesn't have all my information. Okay, moon is 4th ray, and Mars is 6th ray, and the ruler on the moon is Mars, 6th ray, and Mercury is 4, is the esoteric 4th ray. Aries itself has ray 1 and 7. And one thing that was kind of interesting to me, and I did my ray analysis, I didn't have any 1st ray or 4th ray in my chart, but I see in the astrology chart, I've got 1st ray and 4th ray all over the place. And so when I first started studying the rays, I thought I was a 1st ray soul or 1st ray personality. I think what I was picking up is this 1st ray energy coming in through Aries. So it's interesting also that Libra is typically a sign of balance, and of course the moon is 4th ray. But the one thing that I've just realized is that the 3rd ray is what really brings about the balance in the way I'm seeing it, because of the 1st and 2nd ray combination of energies that make up the 4th ray. The thing that's missing is the 3rd. I think that's evident there on Libra as being a 3rd ray sign. Okay, I didn't know if I could keep on talking about the moon, but I think we better move on.
Okay.
In my sun sign is Taurus, also again 4th ray, and 1st ray under Vulcan is in that sign, with that sign. Sun being the 2nd ray, and the opposite is the Earth, or Scorpio, 4th ray again, and Earth is opposite, of course, the Sun being 3rd ray. So in these two, the moon and the sun, I see where I've come from, being a lot of emotional issues to be dealt with, raising it up to the mental aspect of it, and then ultimately, beyond these points, discovering that I had a duality, which is really the sign of the Sagittarius to the Gemini axis on the ascendant. I think Gemini is the duality. I think the duality there that I was discovering was personality and soul duality. So realizing how this all plays together in one whole, not one individual piece, and putting all the pieces together, but it's the whole picture. So as I was starting moving the emotional up to control by the mental, and then raising that mental up to a spiritual purpose, doing those 3 things. And as the ascendant sign, I see the goal, I accomplish that goal, I see the next. I can see through my life those steps of the emotional, controlling that, going to the mental, and then going to the higher mental, going to instead of the mind going into intuition and then ultimately discovering the soul purpose, and then going from materialism to spiritualism, you know, that whole gamut has been the entire life span, covering the whole lifespan of discovering and moving on to the next goal. So, kind of jumped around a little bit there.
It's okay. That's okay. Keep going.
I looked at kind of the Scorpio-Taurus axis, and looking at it,
Why did you do that?
looking at the sun.
Okay.
Did I say Scorpio?
Yeah, you did. I just want the audience to know why you did that.
Taurus, the Taurus to Scorpio axis. The personality dealing with, well, that's what you come in with. In the incarnation, it's come in, this is what we're starting out with. And so trying to discover what that entails with my life, you know, and again, both of those are fourth ray. But first, fifth ray in their Taurus is the exoteric ruler, and Vulcan is the first ray esoteric ruler of the sun, my sun sign. And Scorpio being the fourth ray, and then its ruler is Mars, sixth ray, along with Pluto, first ray. And then the esoteric ruler of Scorpio is Mars, again, sixth ray. But the one thing that I noticed was that the Earth supposedly, well, is the most grounded point in my chart, at the Earth, that third ray. I think that's kind of interesting because third ray implies intelligence or creativity, and I think that's the keynote, not just gaining knowledge, but being able to apply that knowledge using wisdom, you know, using the soul aspect of everything to raise that intelligence up to the intuition aspect. And I was just reading that one thing that we have to detach from is memory, and I can't remember much what I said just a couple sentences ago. I think I'm doing a good job letting go of my memory. But maybe think about, both my parents had Alzheimer's, and maybe instead of being a disease, maybe it was a detachment of something there. But anyway.
Victor?
Yeah.
I'd like to mention that, you know, earlier when you were talking about your counts and you were talking about that fourth quadrant and the one planet in it, that's of course your Earth, and how you didn't really relate to that. But, you know, the Earth is not only the most grounded, but it's also an indication of your Dharma. And in Scorpio, that's going to be very internal, but in the 11th house, that's going to be group work. And you have so many planets there in the Western Hemisphere, the group relation. And soul work is all about the group. It's never about the individual. So not only is it just you joining those groups, and as you mentioned, the spiritual groups, but that's the whole crux to the soul expression, is the group activity. And you can see that through this Taurus, Earth, Taurus, Scorpio, Sun, Earth axis. You can see that working out in the dynamics there. So I just wanted to bring that up.
This might be a good place to come in with some ideas and thoughts before you move on to your ascendant. Okay, Victor?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, let's look at the wonderful group of planets that you have in the sign of Aries.
Right.
Now, that is not a mistake. Soul has chosen, you as a soul have chosen to have a large number of planets in Aries, and that's for the purpose of learning something in this incarnation. Now, the rulers of Aries, both of them, the exoteric and the esoteric, are both in Aries. That in itself is very, very good. It's very significant that they are both there, which means that you can use that Aries energy to its greatest potential. One way of looking at this is that the Mars energy could represent your physical nature, and that the moon energy can represent your emotions. And if we combine the two, and their degrees are very closely aligned, you know, they're conjunct or conjoined, and they're both in the same sign, which means that the integration of those two vehicles within your form, within you as an individual, should come easily. And that means you might have a lot of emotions, a lot of physicality that work hand in hand together. Now, the mind, Mercury, the degree is further apart, so they're not conjoined, they're not together, but yet it's in the same sign, which means that you can then be a little bit objective, and it doesn't have to be quite so much kama manasic as it could be if it was closer together, that you could integrate all these three aspects of yourself with some ease. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Because now, how does one differentiate what is what and what is another? And that's the whole thing that we need to do as disciples. Recognize what is our physical energy, what is our drive, what is our activity, which would be the Mars, what is our emotions, and how do we, if we feel something, do we act on that, which would be the two working very, very closely hand in hand. And then applying the mind to all of this. So you have the opportunity to really work on that integration. And don't forget, we integrate consistently right up until the fourth initiation. So there's always more and more integration that goes on. We refine our integration. You could have a tremendous amount of physical energy. And do you? Do you, I'm asking. Yeah.
Well, I have had. It's coming back.
But you know, you probably have a lot of energy, and it could be, as you said, anger. It could be frustration. It could be bursting out, because that's what Aries does. With the Moon and Mars there could be a lot of lack of control of that aspect within yourself. Now, you may have progressed through some of that. Maybe there are still tendencies towards that, but that could speak of a tendency with that combination there.
Yeah, I would say that that's right. The tendency is there. I think I've mastered pretty much all of it. I knew a long time ago that I couldn't let my emotions just run rampant, so I had to control or call in or rein in the anger, rage, that type of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And therefore, you've got to use your mind. Again,
right.
The mind is an Aries, so you should be able to do that rather easily. And nothing is easy, but you know what I mean. The flow should be there. They're all in the same sign. There should be that recognition on your part that allows you to rein it in, to control it, and apply the mind. Not only that, Victor, the ruler of your sun sign, as we know, is Venus. And Venus is right there next to Mercury. And Venus is, as you have pointed out, is fifth ray. And Venus brings a quality of, what do I want to say here? A Venusian mind, which is a beautifying of the mind. It synthesizes the mind. This could lead to a fifth ray energy on the mind. I don't know if you have that or not.
Yes, I do.
I thought so. So again, we can see how that would influence the mind. And you have the capacity to really have that synthetic ability to bring it together in the mind by having that combination of energies there. Okay? Yeah?
I would also like to point out that with that stellium, you have the the Mars and Moon, the physical and the emotional, in the 3rd house of integration, but you have Venus and Mercury in the 4th house of your spiritual roots. Okay, and the Taurus, we know the exoteric ruler of Taurus is Vulcan. Vulcan has to be, it's within 8 degrees 30 minutes of the sun. So we know your Vulcan has to be in Taurus. We don't know where in Taurus, but we know he has to be there. So Vulcan esoterically is in his home sign. The other thing esoterically with the sun is it's usually veiling Neptune, the heart of the sun, esoterically, which is opposite your Mars and Moon. So that adds to the dynamics of that Aries-Libra axis that also interacts with your midheaven that you talked about earlier, the dynamics of that balance. So.
Okay, another point that you touched on, but we never really went to it in the chart, is that third-ray quality that you seem to be right now enamored with. And that, if we look
That's
at...
my personality, too, by the way.
If we look at your stellium, or rather, better are the first 2 planets there, the Moon and Mars, they are forming a square to Saturn. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then Saturn forms a square in Libra to Neptune. So in fact, you have a T-square there to Saturn. Okay? You see that?
I see that, but I don't really know what it means.
Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit about that. There you go. So that Saturn is in the 7th house, the house of relationships, right? And then you had those 2 energetic and emotional signs in the house also of relationships, because it's a Gemini house. So there's something about relationships that is karmic here for you that you have to learn to work with in this incarnation. Saturn, remember, Saturn limits. Saturn can be the authority. Saturn can be a little demanding, either of yourself or of others, because it's in the house of others, relationships, that if you apply anger, frustration, lack of understanding in relationships, that could be a hardship, because you've got Saturn sitting in the house of relationships. And it's squaring something in Libra, again, in the house of relationship, not house, but in the sign of relationships. So I would venture to say that you have, with Saturn as the apex of that T-square, that it is very important for you to try to figure out something about relationships here, how to do it differently. Because one of the things that I have been taught, and I have learned over time, is that Saturn and Mars together, a relationship between Saturn and Mars, and you have that as a square, means something, a cycle. Saturn is about cycle, and Mars cuts, right? Mars can cut. So something has to be cut, and there's the end of a cycle for you in this incarnation. And you need to learn to do something differently. So you need to cut something that you've been doing, that you've come with you, and that you've brought with you. You have to learn to, anyway, let me put it this way. It's the end of a cycle. And if it's about relationships, how are you going to do relationships differently in this incarnation is what I would put out to you.
Okay. And what I can relate to that with is in the past I've been dependent on another person,
right?
Or dependent on my mother, or dependent on others, and I've learned to detach from those dependencies, to be more independent and not needy, but independent and can stand alone or detach completely from those old relationships.
Okay. Also,
And I would like to point out that that's exactly what the signs are telling us here.
right.
Okay, constraint with Saturn concerning, relationship issues. Cancer is the home and the mother. And Aries, Mars conjunct the moon in Aries. So the Aries is the independent. The Cancer is the relationships. The house is the relationships. And Saturn is the restraint in that. So that ties in very nicely with what you just said, Victor.
Did you have difficulty with your father?
No, my father was a good man, but he never showed me any love.
Right. That usually that kind of combination, Saturn and Mars could be, not the easiest combination. It could show that there was an uneasiness with the father. And remember, Saturn holds back. Saturn holds back. So Saturn, representing the male figure here, could be that the father held back a lot of the love and the nurturing, because it's in Cancer, toward you.
Well, one thing that I've done, I recognize what he was doing to me, and I wasn't going to let that happen to me and others. So my father never said, "I love you." And so I started saying to my brothers, "I love you." And so now they say back to me, "I love you." And then even one time I said to my dad, I said, "I love you." And he didn't know what to do. I mean, he looked at me, and then he thought about it, and he said, "Well, I love you too." But, it was a very strange, a very difficult thing for me to do. But I said, "I'm going to go for it." That's Aries.
That's good, good. It shows growth on your part. Now, before we go too long here, I want you to deal with your ascendant. We haven't talked about that yet. But I hope we've given you some things to think about and to maybe see it within the chart. Yeah. Don't forget that the combination of Neptune, I never talked about that, Neptune and Mars and Moon is, one is water, one is fire, causes steam, flare-ups, steam, hot. So that's why you got to use your mind to control that and to bring that. And you got to use your Saturn. Saturn will control that. Saturn is the great controller. And it's the apex of that T-square. You've got to control all that flare-up, all that ongoing. The fight, whatever fight, whether it's internal or whether it's external, Saturn will kind of control that. Anyway, let's talk about your ascendant.
Okay. Well, from what I understand, the ascendant is Sagittarius, and its rulers are the rays that are coming through that sign is 4, 5, and 6. And Jupiter is the second ray. That's the exoteric ruler and also the ruler of the chart. Earth is the esoteric ruler of the chart, ray 3. But since I'm speaking of Jupiter, the one thing that I recognize is that I've got Jupiter sitting in Virgo up in the 9th house, and it is with my sun sign, that's trine. I don't know what that really means. I think it means the sun is second ray also, but it's also should be helping or boosting Jupiter or the second ray.
Well, trine is an ease of energies. Rather than looking at the rays, let's look at the ease of energies. One is Earth, and so is the other. They're both Earth, which means you have the capacity to be grounded, to ground your thoughts and ideas, to be realistic, to be dependable, that kind of thing. That's what the Earth combination here would tell us.
Okay, and Jupiter is sextile to Earth, which to me that seems like that would make the Jupiter energy and Earth energy working together.
Right, that's good.
It's a sextile is an opportunity for them to work together.
Okay.
But you have to actively use that, just like with the trine. It's something we actually can take for granted. So But yes, it presents as an opportunity for you to use those two rulers together for the work of the soul, your ascendant.
And the beauty of having Jupiter dignified in the house that it normally would rule, right? Because Sagittarius is the ninth house, and the fact that Jupiter is there is, again, a very good placement. It's in the house of higher learning, so
Right.
it's
And
not
from what
by
I
accident.
What I also got was on that house is also about ageless wisdom. And
Yes. Higher learning, any
yeah.
kind, whether it's theosophy, philosophy, higher maths, religion, it doesn't matter. It's something that's a little bit more abstract, and you have the capacity, the opportunity to broaden, Jupiter, to broaden, to make more expansive everything that you're being exposed to, you know. So that's a good thing, because with Sagittarius is I see the goal. Okay, what is the goal? And then I see another. So you might have, you know, many goals. You might see a goal, you might reach that goal, and then create a deeper goal or a higher goal for yourself.
Right. Speaking of goals, this is what I wrote. Some of the goals that I've recognized and accomplished, at least in some degree, have been shifting from emotionalism to a mental focus, transforming vices into virtues, recognizing my duality of personality and soul, and striving to align the personality with the soul, and to provide service to humanity in a way that enables others to awaken to their soul and ageless wisdom.
Beautiful.
Focus via the healing aspect, which I'm also aware of, is that I am focusing my efforts toward or on healing rather than going scatterbrained into other areas like politics or, you know, different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So just focusing on the healing and using that as the entry point into talking to other people, you know.
And that's what Sagittarius will do. It will allow you to become focused, right? Instead of the arrows going all over the place, they can be narrowed down and become focused right for whatever the goal is for you at the time.
Okay.
Now, you've got a lot of fire to you. Remember, you have fire and Sag, fire with all that Aries, and you've got to use that Saturn to temper that. You've got to use your sun sign to temper all that fire so that it is in a measured way. Saturn, 7th house, measured way. Okay?
Well,
all right.
I did write something about the fire, and I
think we need to move on.
Okay.
We've been at this now a half hour, so I think we've done well, and I hope we have left you with more things to think about and maybe to look at your chart a little bit differently now, rather than looking just at the rays. And I know rays has been a focus for you now for a while since you've been with Moria Federation, but now try to get a sense of the energies behind the signs and the planets that we're working with and where they are in your life.
I would just like to say really quickly before we move on that it's the whole picture that we see through the astrological relationships, through the rayological relationships, and through the chakras that, you know, DK talks about in that 5-volume set of the rays. You know, the esoteric healing, esoteric psychology 1 and 2, esoteric astrology, and the rays, all 5 of them. They all go together, and we learn so much from each different aspect. So you can't really just concentrate on one area and not consider the others. So enough said.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Victor. Well done. You see, it wasn't that hard.
took hours and hours and hours and hours.
I know. I told you, you've done the hardest part.
Yeah, you did the hard part, and that will never be lost. It's always excellent work to do what you did going through all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Appreciate
Next up.
Thank you very much again.
Yes, thanks, Victor.
Thanks for all your help.
Yvonne, are you ready?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm ready. I had mentioned earlier that I would be glad when this was over, and as Victor said, this is hours and hours and hours of work consuming me the past month, but Before this, I said, I love astrology and I want to study astrology, so be careful what you wish for. So this has been good for me. I don't regret this at all. This has been great. It was a lot of work. But, okay, version number 4. My ascendant's in Virgo, my sun's in Libra, and my moon is in Taurus. The hemispheres in quadrants first. I have a strong eastern hemisphere self-initiated activities, either alone or in a group. The north houses are introvert 5, the south are extrovert 6. So I think I'm balanced. I need a little more time alone than with others. I live alone except for 8 cats, raccoons, and birds. Examples of self-initiated activities, esoteric ones would be, I started a full moon meditation group at my house 5 years ago. I started esoteric healing groups. A few times they fell apart. I brought Alan Hopkins to Pittsburgh to teach esoteric healing. I've brought in workshops to Pittsburgh on rays in astrology. I've belonged to an esoteric study group for about 15 years that William Meter started. I went to the Barbara Brennan School of Healing and I graduated. I've taken esoteric healing twice from Deborah Mills, and I joined the Moria Federation 2 years ago, and I attend the 7-ray conferences each year, which I really enjoy. The exoteric examples of self-initiated activities are I went back to school after my divorce and got my BS and master's degree in health science. I've done weaving, macrame, cake decorating, stained glass classes, roller skating lessons, ballroom dance. I play pickleball with the Y still at my age. I play cards now. I love flowers, gardening. I love to read. Besides esoteric books, I read novels. And I like movies too, so I have a balance of self-initiated activities. My ascendant is in Virgo, 0 degrees. The ascendant is the method the soul uses to express its purpose. And Virgo is an earth sign. The lower sign key phrase is let matter reign. The higher sign key phrase is I am the mother and the child. I, God, I, matter, am. Virgo is associated with the gestation of the spirit soul within the womb of the mother substance from 1, the critical and materialistic personality, this is where I was, up to the purified and creative consciousness of the disciple, this is where I think I am now, to the Christ awareness of the initiate, and this is what I'm aiming for. Now, the definition of the mother, matter, or materialism controls the personality. The focus of the thought life is to acquire worldly things with a narrow judgmental perspective. It measures people by their value in the material world. The higher key phrase, I am the mother and the child, I, God, I, matter, am. This emphasizes the fact that all things in the universe are but various forms created by God and through which God is working out its purpose. Aspirants must overcome judgmental thoughts and materialistic attitudes. The purification work is necessary so that the Christ consciousness, love, wisdom, is able to express through the heart. They use Vulcan's power to become protectors of the people, to become leaders and experts in their chosen profession or field of work. My career was a nurse anesthetist for 50 years. I put people to sleep and was their guardian angel during their surgeries, and I was very protective of my patients. When I was younger, my focus was on acquiring material things, crystal, china, purses, clothes, cars, silver, antiques, and men. I identify now with a higher phrase. My main focus is spiritual. My life has been about purifying my physical, emotional, and mental bodies. I stopped drinking. I quit smoking. I take no mind-altering drugs. I try to remember to exercise. And I usually eat a healthy diet except when I go on sugar binges. I'm a nurturer. I take care of everyone. I love to feed people, including myself, and animals, and I love nursing and taking care of sick people. Some of the sign weaknesses of Virgo are critical, perfectionist, tries hard to acquire earth treasures, power used for selfish material gain. I used to love to criticize people. I thought I was funny. In hindsight, my pointing out their faults was I didn't have to look at mine. And I've never been a perfectionist. My motto was half-ass is better than no-ass. If I didn't do it perfectly, I didn't have to. That's okay. I like the quick, dirty method. So sign of the strengths in Virgo are hardworking, mentally studious, practical in personal professional affairs, kind to people. I am hardworking, 75% effort, and 25% lazy in Taurus. I've always been a good student, and I've enjoyed learning new things. Ray weaknesses of Virgo. Some of the Ray weaknesses of Ray 2 are oversensitive, fearful, overattachment to people, need to be loved, inability to say no. There was a time in my 20s and 30s, and I'm 72 now, when I was controlled by fear, agoraphobia. I have no idea what that was about. It took years of therapy and mental health training to overcome it. The drinking, which I did to relieve the stress, only made my shaking and fear worse. Rather than admit I needed to be loved and wasn't, I just put up a wall and pretended I didn't care. Rays 6 for comes through Virgo. Rays 2 and 6 come through Virgo. The weaknesses of Ray 6 are blind faith, rigid idealism, selfish intolerance, and excessive emotionalism. I have a history of being called a dictator and a castrator. My ex-husband said I castrate everything. It was my way or the highway. I was divorced for a reason. I couldn't live with me either. I was selfishly intolerant. And in all fairness, I said my ex-husband was a good person, but I was in my alcohol addiction at the time. The Ray strengths of Virgo are Ray 2. The strengths are compassion, understanding, patience, a desire to heal, and teaching. I have developed compassion, a desire to heal myself and others, and patience to a degree. I'm not really a teacher. I can do it, but it's not my calling, I don't think. Now, Ray 6 strengths are strong and faithful devotion towards an ideal person or principle, the power to persuade, ability to arouse and inspire others. The Ray 6 strength for me would be my commitment towards my spiritual path while allowing others to walk theirs in their own way most of the time. I wasn't always that tolerant. I thought I was right. Now I try to see the bigger picture. The esoteric and exoteric rulers of Virgo. The exoteric ruler is Mercury, the fourth ray. The esoteric ruler is the moon veiling Vulcan, which is Ray 4 and Ray 1. Mercury signifies the versatility energy of the sun of mind. Mercury is communication. I'm in the Moria Federation and doing this webinar. I've come a long way, baby, as Eva said. In the past 2 years, learning how to use technical equipment, and particularly the computer. I've also learning how to communicate with people without pissing them off. This came from Lawson. He did an astrology reading for me and said I had to learn how to communicate with people without pissing them off. I believe that Vulcan is helping me eliminate material things and people from my life that aren't compatible with my spiritual path. Okay, the moon rules the form. The moon veiling Vulcan stands for glorification.
Okay, hold it.
Yes,
Let me let you pause for just 1 minute here because I want to point out something before you move on, okay?
Sure. I'm just finishing my ascendant.
Oh.
You want me to finish that first?
Yeah, go ahead.
On to my sun side. Okay, so I'm on the moon. This is my ascendant. The moon is my spiritual ruler in Vulcan. So this is a Vulcan I have as an esoteric ruler in my ascendant, and it's also the esoteric ruler in my moon. And I found a paragraph in esoteric astrology that resonates with me. Virgo is related to Taurus through Vulcan, which brings in what might be called the endurance aspect of the will to be, which carries the incarnated Son of God through experience of the dark time, wherein the personality becomes the mother in the stage of gestation, through the period of infancy upon the physical plane, and through the stage of adolescence until the initiate attains full maturity. This necessitates persistence, endurance, and continuity of effort, and is one of the characteristics imparted or stimulated by energies pouring through Vulcan. And I feel that I've been knocked down many times throughout my life, and Vulcan has given me the strength to pick myself up and go on. So that's the end of the ascendant BL. So next will be my sun sign, so I'll stop there for you.
Okay, what I wanted to point out to people is that you have these bookends here. Yvonne, can you put yourself on self-mute, please? Okay, you have these bookends here. Your ascendant is at 0 degrees Virgo, and your Neptune is at 29 degrees Virgo. You know, we look at what we call critical degrees in astrology, and there's several different versions of that. There's a couple of degrees in cardinal, a couple of degrees in fixed, and a couple of degrees in mutable that are considered critical degrees. But also, a lot of astrologers consider the very beginning degree, 00 degrees, or the very ending degree, 29, to be critical degrees, because it is the beginning of the learning of the lesson on the spiral up, or the potential to end the particular lesson on the spiral as we go up. So it's interesting that you have both of those there. You know, it shows this particular phase in your soul work as the beginning of the, I would say, the more discerning part of Virgo. You know, you talked about being very critical when you were younger, and now you've moved away from that and are working more towards the nurturing side of it. And I think Neptune also will bring that in. Neptune is going to be attached to your sun, and it's actually conjunct your sun, and we'll talk about more of that later. But I just wanted to point that out, that you have the two critical degrees here in the sign of Virgo, which is so important to you in your chart. Okay? So, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, now the aspects, I'll let you and Eva do that when I'm done. Now, my sun sign is in Libra, and that's Ray 3 active intelligence. And esoterically, the second house represents substance, resources, and values. The higher spiritual purpose is an environment fostering spiritual values and a higher use of resources. The lower Libra phrase is, let choice be made. The higher Libra phrase is, I choose the way which leads between the two great lines of force. The exoteric ruler of Libra is Venus, the fifth ray, and the esoteric ruler of Libra is Uranus, the seventh ray. Venus in Libra is a point of balance between material personal desire and intelligent spiritual love. Uranus gives innate spontaneous activity and produces evolutionary development. It is the urge to better conditions. The virtues of Ray 3 are wide views on abstract questions, sincerity of purpose, clear intellect, capacity for concentration on philosophic studies, patience, caution, absence of tendency to worry himself or others over trifles. That's me. I'm not very patient, and I'm sometimes not cautious. The rest of these I possess to a moderate degree. Negative characteristics of Ray 3 are intellectual pride, coldness, isolation, inaccuracy in details, absent-mindedness, obstinacy, selfishness, overmuch criticism of others. I'm guilty of all of them, but not to a great degree. Virtues of Ray 3 to be acquired: sympathy, tolerance, devotion, accuracy, and common sense. Tolerance would be my weakest link here. I try now to be tolerant of other people's views, especially on religion. I have to remember to mind my own business. I try to remember not to give advice unless asked, and sometimes my know-it-all attitude gets in the way. Slow drivers in front of me and people driving stupidly and talking on their cell phones. I need a lot of patience and tolerance there. Okay, balancing the Sun-Earth axis via the houses. Libra is opposite Aries, houses 2 and 8. The exoteric issue is aggression versus harmony, self versus society. This is becoming slowly with age and wisdom. The esoteric issue is emerging mental control over the personality, establishing balance and soul control over the personality. Again, I'm a work in progress. The second and eighth house axis, the exoteric purpose, is to enjoy the world without being consumed by it, give and take in dealing with others. I'm getting to that point in my life now. The esoteric purpose of the 2-8 house axis is to use the higher spiritual values directed by the soul to transmute the lower desires of the personality, to put my selfish desires aside for the higher group purpose. Sometimes I feel aggression if I don't get my way, even in an esoteric study group where there is a conflict of interest on that study. So I have to try to remember harmlessness. And a lot of the meditation themes that we've been assigned. I think the opposite thought has really helped me. All right, so my Sun-Earth axis is about soul-controlling personality as well as group resources and values overriding personality issues. So I'm ready to go on to Moon in Taurus.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, my Moon is in Taurus in the 9th house. The exoteric 9th house represents spiritual integration. The esoteric 9th house is an environment fostering spiritual enlightenment, ancient wisdom. The exoteric key phrase is, let struggle be undismayed. The Moon in Taurus is spoiled and self-indulgent, an appetite for sensuous experience. They've been reading my mail. Self-discipline is needed to transmute the lower desires into aspiration and to stop struggling for non-important things of material value but with no spiritual value. The esoteric key phrase is, I see, and when the eye is open, all is light. This must be used to transform old patterns. Negative habits and traits of Taurus: stubbornness, self-indulgent behavior, laziness, materialistic, possessive personality. And this is where my 7 deadly sins come in. I have sloth, gluttony, drunkenness, pride, lust, and greed. I missed one. The personality seeks food and satisfaction. I have all of these that I have to keep struggling with. It's been a lifelong struggle. I've got it down to sloth and compulsive overeating. Positive traits to cultivate in Taurus are dependability, practicality, patience, independence, and persistence. I have work to do on self-discipline, to do the things I should and not the easier, softer way, and to remember that I have enough, there is enough, and I am enough. The exoteric ruler of Taurus is Venus, ray 5. The esoteric ruler is Vulcan, ray 1. Taurus is ray 4 energy. Some of the virtues of ray 4 are strong affection, sympathy, physical courage, generosity, devotion, quickness of intellect, and perception. These qualities are mostly true for me. The vices of ray 4 are self-centeredness, worrying, inaccuracy, lack of moral courage, strong passions, indolence, and extravagance. As far as vices, I'm afraid it's mostly about me, self-centered. I don't do a lot of worrying at this time in my life. It wasn't true in the past. I was a worrier. But I'm 72 and I'm retired. I'm not inaccurate and I'm not controlled by passions except for an occasional outburst of anger. Virtues to be acquired with ray 4 are serenity, self-control, purity, unselfishness, accuracy, mental and moral balance. Venus is the exoteric ruler of Taurus, ray 5. And it stands for emergence of the love principle through the directing power of the concrete mind. In Taurus, the Venus mind expresses itself through intelligent desire, for that is the goal of the ordinary man. Vulcan is the esoteric ruler of Taurus, and it has ray 1 energy, to bend the will of the little self to that of the soul. Vulcan represents tests of endurance that help bring in the light of the soul. Vulcan gives me the power to reshape my life, the path of least resistance that I tend to fall back on during stress is self-indulgent behavior, like laziness and compulsive overeating. My midheaven MC point is in Taurus, career goals and environment fostering development of spiritual responsibility. I met all my career goals as a professional. I think I'm becoming spiritually responsible now to myself and others. My nadir, IC point, is in Scorpio, home, domestic relationship, and past karmic ties. My mother was a Scorpio, and we had a constant battle most of my life. We seemed to push each other's buttons. I was extremely stubborn. Ascendant in the first house, Virgo. Inner self, personality, physical body, point where the soul left off in the last life, new qualities to develop. My descendant in Pisces. Relationships, establishing viable spiritual relationships with the soul and the soul group. I have been part of esoteric study and healing groups for almost 20 years. Sometimes it's hard to get along with people in study groups. This is where my work is, in relating to people without friction. Okay, I didn't do the aspects, but I'm done with my other stuff.
Very well done, Yvonne. You hit on a lot of very important areas in your chart.
I just followed your outline.
Okay, so let's look at them in a slightly different way. So the very first thing to point out, you might want to put yourself, well, I'm going to need you to answer a few things, but there is a bit of a feedback echo I'm hearing.
I'll put it off till you want me.
Okay, so I'll wait for you to do that. Okay, it's much better now. So whenever we have planets in Virgo, Virgo is the sign of adjustment and correction. For you, it is not only do you have two important planets in Virgo, you have your ascendant in Virgo. So your soul has chosen a life where you're going to be making a lot of corrections and a lot of adjustments. You've spoken to that, so I don't need to ask you what corrections, what adjustments do you need to make, because your life consistently has been about that. So that's very important to point out. The other thing that we know about Virgo, as you've indicated, is that it does want to it wants to perfect. When we speak of perfection, we're not talking about ideal necessarily. It can be the ideal, but it wants to perfect upon the form. Healing is one of the modalities that is used in order to bring the physical form into an ideal situation, to be healthy. So many Virgoans find themselves in the healing professions, as did you. Venus in Virgo, Venus is about beauty. It's about wanting to see the form in its most beautiful aspect. And anything of the form that isn't beautiful, that isn't what we call perfect, is then seen as not perfect. And hence, there is the criticism. There is, and with you it's in the first house, so there's the tendency to be critical, whether it's about others, whether it's about things, whether it's about beautifying and the home, or whatever it is. You'll see what isn't. Okay, there's a tendency with Venus and Virgo, and especially when it comes to another, the mate, because Venus is about our relationship. So I have Venus and Virgo too, so I know of what I speak. We tend to see what isn't right in our mate, and we then criticize or say it. So we have to be careful of that. But there's a couple of very interesting dualities that come through in this chart. You pointed it out very nicely. Let's look at that. Vulcan, as you have said, is the ruler of the moon in in both Taurus. It's the esoteric ruler, and it is, the moon is the esoteric ruler of Virgo, and for you Vulcan is the substitute there for the moon. So we see Vulcan identified both times, and for you it would be either, because it's on 8 degrees on either side of the sun, it could be in Libra, or it could be yet again in Virgo. So Vulcan comes through twice. You read a very interesting paragraph how Taurus and Virgo are very much related through Vulcan, and they are. There's a very strong Taurian quality to you in your form, and in your love of nature, in your love of animals, and in your MC, there is the Taurus as well. So we see a real strong Taurian quality to you. And what is the ruler of Taurus? It is Venus. What is the ruler of your sun sign? It is Venus. So we see how Venus and Vulcan are emphasized twice in your chart thus far. Both Venus and Vulcan are rulers of Taurus. Venus stands for the ajna center, for the ability to integrate the personality, to integrate the form. So that's an interesting thing. So we see Venus and Vulcan, how powerful they are for you in your chart. Now, the ruler of your ascendant, as you aptly pointed out, is Mercury. And Mercury finds itself in Libra. And the ruler of Libra, which is Venus, finds itself in Virgo. Do we see that there is a mutual reception here? In other words, the ruler of the one is in the other. The ruler of Virgo is in Libra. The ruler of Libra is in Virgo. It's what we call a mutual reception. And what that does is, again, it emphasizes both the sign and the planet. It underscores how important your mind, because both of those are mind planets, are for you. Both the Mercury in Libra, which is air, and the Venus in Virgo, and Venus again could be the mind as well, fifth ray to it, how important using your mind in this incarnation is for you. Because Venus again is identified twice, and the will, the strong will, Vulcan, first ray, strong will to change, to beautify the form, to beautify the personality is so strong for you that it pounds away at you like a hammer, like an anvil that Vulcan uses to pound away and to burnish the beautiful metal that you are, the metal, your metal, so that you can be this beautiful beautiful Venus, so that you can be this beautiful form, beautiful personality, having the light that you are come through. So all of these are boding so well for you in this chart because you have so much opportunity to work with Venus, to use your mind, and that Vulcan, as you said, it hasn't been easy. Vulcan isn't easy. It pounds away at you, and it you know, when a blacksmith works with metal, he first puts it in the fire, then he puts and cools it off in the cold water, creating steam, which creates tremendous amount of emotion. You know, that's steam rising to the top, sometimes uncontrollable. So all these are aspects of the personality that you have had to and continually keep working with. Obviously, you're using the mind, much more control, much more refinement, etc., etc. I've covered the main thing. Anything that needs to be said, either respond by Yvonne or BL, please add.
I'd like to add something, and then we'll give Yvonne a chance again. You know, you talked about the moon and its two rulers, but the sun, you know, esoterically veils Neptune, and Neptune is right here conjunct the sun, so it shows they have that relationship. But it's also in Virgo, so it shows what we've got here with the trine between the moon in Taurus and the ascendant in Virgo. You know, we have the earth trine here between the two, and then here we have the relationship. As a matter of fact, they're semi-sextile each other, the sun and the ascendant, but also the ruler here in Virgo. And again, remember those bookends I told you about the critical degrees. So what it's showing here is a relationship between the past patterns that you're trying to get rid of, your personality aspect, and the balance that you're trying to achieve with the Libra, and the goals of that Virgo ascendant. So it shows that they're all working together, and that's pretty much what you described for us in your, this is how I was before, and this is what I'm working on, and this is my goal. It shows those three key points in your chart have a relationship amongst each other to help you fulfill that part that you're working out. Okay, back over to you for closing comments, Siobhan.
As far as the squaring aspects, I didn't get that. The sun, let's see. What about the squares?
Well, the squares that you've got, you know, I was just really looking at the relationships between your ascendant, your your moon, the sun, and their rulers. The squares that I see are not to the rulers. You've got the trine, two earth elements between the moon and the ascendant. The moon being the esoteric ruler. The relationship to the exoteric ruler, it's not really a relationship. It's a very wide sextile relationship. But it's, sextile is an opportunity. The relationship, the aspects between your sun and its rulers, the sun in Libra is ruled by Venus that Eva talked about. They're loosely conjunct, but it's a very wide conjunction. But the fact that they play off of each other, as Eva described, is a good thing. And then the other ruler of Libra is Uranus. Uranus at 4 is trine to air signs, again, with a similar type relationship that they've got there. So you didn't have any squares in your rulers to your big three.
Except for Mercury. Mercury, the ruler of her ascendant, is squared Jupiter. And so we could say that, there is a lot of opportunity here to use the mind, to expand the mind. And then you have Uranus, as was mentioned, also in an air sign. So again, mind, Uranus could be the mind. So the mind is a very important thing for you to use in this incarnation. You have it set up in such a way that you can really use the mind. You have Jupiter squaring your Mercury. You have Uranus trining your Sun. Trine is an ease of energy, right? So, and then you have this wonderful setup with Venus being emphasized so strongly in your chart. Again, mind. So we could say that there's, again, lots of opportunity to use your mind. And relationships keeps coming up again, too. So relationships, mind, not all that much different for Victor. And you know what? It applies to all of us, really, because soul is all about relationships. How do we do relationships? How are we in relationships? So, chart gives us opportunities to really work that. Okay, I'm comfortable. I'm done, and I think that you've done a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm done too, and I've enjoyed it, and I hope these webinars continue. I really do. We've just started. I feel like I'm just starting. I am.
Right. Right.
So I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
So we move on to Brett.
Yep.
Hi, everyone.
Brett, are you ready for the hot seat?
Oh, how hot is it?
Well, they've done a great job. They've warmed it up really nicely for you.
Oh, that's nice. Yes, they did a great job. And I guess I'm ready. Yes, that's my chart up there. How about that? Let's see. Start with the divisions. Well, as far as the divisions go, I am very introverted, and I would suppose that this is related to the third quadrant having only one planet. I'm not entirely sure about that.
No, it doesn't necessarily, but you could be introverted, but it seems to be fairly well balanced for you, up, down, side to side. So, yeah, you're a balanced person, believe it or not.
You could also say scattered. Just so many things going on in so many different directions sometimes. So I've often looked at the chart and thought of it that way too. So I'll immediately go on to the big three, starting with the ascendant.
Sure.
Negative, I can see within myself some judgmental, overcritical, and harsh mentality. I've been expelled from a couple of groups for giving my unadulterated opinion. My first-ray mind has tended to reinforce this tendency, and the fifth-ray personality has brought in justice without mercy. I have had to counter this by bringing through the second ray soul and Jupiter and all that. Mercury is the exoteric ruler of my Virgo ascendant and is conjunct the moon, the esoteric ruler, both in Aquarius. Virgo being both ray 2 and ray 6, and Aquarius being ray 5, Mercury and the moon are also both ray 4 planets, so that will bring in the conflict. So others may not be happy with my unadulterated opinions. Another negative is that I've been too conservative. I am too cautious about making decisions. Just wait and wait and plan and plan and plan and never actually do. I am too willing to let other people decide and have kind of drifted along through life. My highest elemental count is Earth, and that is slow, plodding, and conservative. And the ascendant in Virgo is also an Earth sign. Another negative is overabsorption in study, with good old second ray to reinforce that. I tend to spend most of my time reading, or at least I used to spend most of my time reading. It's kind of a struggle to go ahead and study these days. It's like my mind doesn't focus on that type of thing anymore. This has been countered in part with service in my Moria Federation activities, not only helping with all the behind-the-scenes stuff, but also as a mentor and faculty advisor. And this is, of course, all very ray to teaching study stuff. Another negative in Virgo, I've got lots of negatives in Virgo, is coldness and indifference to others, along with the second ray reinforcing that. There is a strong sense of detachment when dealing with when dealing with most people. There are also no planets in my seventh ray house of relationships and the third house with Saturn. There is stifled, another house of relations. Plus there is Moon and Mercury in Aquarius, which reinforce this. But there is midheaven in Gemini, which wants to relate better or communicate better for the benefit of the work. As far as positive things in the ascendant, there is good attention to detail and analytical ability, reinforced by my fifth ray personality. Careful work as a computer consultant. In my past, I've had over 30 years now as being some type of computer consultant, and also earlier as part of that was being a test engineer and a software quality assurance technician, where a capacity for logical analysis and attention to every detail are essential. On the whole, my mundane work that I've did for decades has helped prepare me for the work I do in Moria Federation, so it has led in the end to some level of service there. Another positive is reliability. One of my friends wrote recently, quote, "There are two people on the planet that I would trust to stay at the house here with their own key, and you two are it." That is another friend of his and myself. And of course, with my technical work, reliability is essential. Another good example of Earth being a key element for me. The ascendant and sun is partly on the second ray, and my soul is also on the second ray, so this tends to reinforce the influence in terms of calmness, patience, love of truth, and clear intelligence, as well as on the negative side. The exoteric ruler is Mercury, and esoteric ruler is the moon. Both are in Aquarius, and both are in opposition to Jupiter and Pluto and Leo, making the expansion of self-awareness one of the key issues of my life. This dynamic axis spans the 5th house of creativity and the 11th house of group work. The signs on these cusps are reversed, so my Aquarius planets are in the traditional Leo house, while my Leo planets are in the traditional Aquarius house. The past patterns are Aquarius, detachment through the moon, and I have felt that the ray 1 of Pluto and the ray 2 of Jupiter have been uniquely positive energies, leading to wisdom and practical expression. That's what I have for the ascendant.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Keep going.
hold on.
Okay.
I just want to say that what you've been describing to us, to me, kind of goes along with the Virgo key phrase. You know, one of them is the mother and child, I, God, I matter, am, but the other one is Christ in you, the hope of glory. And you're actually relating, you take your mundane life that you had and you're relating that to the group work. And that is the creativity that you've got here of the two rulers in Aquarius and the computer work that you do, that you're using for in service, which, you know, you mentioned your son is opposite, in service for. So to me that all kind of ties in, that you're using both that the esoteric goal of the second ray, the esoteric goal of the water of life am I poured forth for thirsty men of the Aquarius, and you're doing it in that Aquarian manner, that detached second ray wisdom without being, you know, it's the detached and the wisdom angle of it as opposed to the loving angle of it. And that's what I saw with the strong second ray and the influences that you've just been talking about. So, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. Sun is in Pisces. On the negative side, that has led to escapism. I haven't been addicted to drugs or alcohol or smoking or things like that, but I have occasionally been in too much denial of what is going on around me. I kind of get lost in my own inner universe. And there is also oversensitivity. There was a time when if someone lightly touched me, I would really jump. I am still rather sensitive to surrounding vibrations of places and people, which can be good and which can also be very difficult. Mm-hmm. The sixth house represents service, and my progress has for many years been associated with my service projects or those of others, such as with the Moria Federation. And Virgo and Pisces both share rays 2 and 6, so these have been rather significant in my nature. I have already dealt with their ray influence in part. The practical Virgo influence as opposed to the rather dreamy Piscean influence. I kind of go back and forth between the two. Like the Leo Aquarius planets, we see the same thing here with my Sun in Pisces in the traditional Virgo house and my Earth in Virgo in the traditional Pisces house. Mm-hmm. That's what I have for Sun.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We can see how they're all kind of interrelated. So rather than stopping, I'll let you continue on to the moon, which you've already talked a little bit about, and then we can sort of synthesize the whole thing.
Very good, very good. Moon in Aquarius. The negative of that is emotional detachment and isolation, and I've seen the tendency to keep to myself. In my most immediate past life, I seem to have been a scholar of some kind in Britain and spent my time in research, rarely dealing with other people at all. So that's partly where a lot of these negative tendencies have come from, even though that was probably a positive lifetime. And so don't have much for the moon.
Okay. All right. So I guess this is our cue. And you've done very well. I think you've pulled together a lot of very important things here. Let's start with your ascendant. And just like I said to Yvonne, if Sol chooses Virgo in your chart to be emphasized, that means that this is a life of adjustment or correction. And you need to ask yourself, what is it that you need to adjust? or correct in this incarnation. Not only do you have Virgo as your ascendant, you have the sun in the house where Virgo normally sits. So that re-emphasizes that theme, that this is a life of correction or adjustment. You don't need to answer us. It's not about us knowing that. It's about you knowing that. So if you haven't got an immediate response to that, think on it. And you come up with, what is it in this incarnation that I need to either adjust, correct, or is it a continual thing? Is it constantly adjusting, correcting, like a dial on a radio? Do I constantly have to keep adjusting? Or is it a major, you know, let's say someone was an alcoholic and they had to really, really learn to change that. So that would be a major thing, you see. Okay, so that's one important thing to pull out. Now, we know that the esoteric ruler of Virgo is the moon. And the moon veils either Vulcan or Neptune in Virgo. I will ask you, Brett, what do you think it veils? What is more outstanding for you? Is it Vulcan or is it Neptune?
Neptune, absolutely.
I agree with you. Okay, perfect. I'm glad you chose that. So Neptune then is not only the esoteric ruler of Virgo, your ascendant, it is also the ruler of your sun. So do we see, again, the emphasis here between the two? And it's all landing on Neptune. Neptune can bring with it also sensitivity. It can bring with it a Buddhic quality. Would you say that that might apply to you?
I hope so.
Okay, but anyway, and then there is this strong relationship of astral, soul, Buddhi in that line. There's that line, 2-4-6 line, whether you have those energies or not. There would be a strong 2-4-6 energetic associated with that. So Neptune becomes a very important planet for you in this incarnation. It's in the second house, the house of resources and values. And it is in Scorpio. And Scorpio is about deep. It is about looking deep down into those waters, into that which is not revealed, into the esoterics, okay, that which is hidden in the depths. And that is repeated yet again, and I'll show you where it's repeated. The ruler of your sun sign, the ruler of Pisces, as we said, is Neptune, but also DK gives us it as Jupiter, right? So the ruler of your sun sign is Jupiter, and it is conjunct Pluto. And Pluto is the esoteric ruler of your sun sign. And what does Pluto do? Pluto goes deep. Pluto is the lord of the underworld. It is about research. Whether it's Scorpio or whether it's Pluto, they're both about research. And when you have Jupiter conjunct Pluto, it's a lot of that. A lot of the ability to go deep, to do the research, to look for that which is hidden, that which is unrevealed. Okay, so you have that so ideally emphasized in that conjunction, and in the ruler of Neptune being in Scorpio in the second house of resources. And going back to Neptune, I know BL is doing such a good job here, it is opposite Venus. And what is Venus about? Venus is also about the mind. It also brings in the fifth ray of the synthesizing ability of that which you have been able to go deep in. And what house is it in? It's in the 8th house. It's in the Scorpio house. Again, it reemphasizes the whole notion of being able to work with that which is hidden, which is unrevealed, which is the esoteric, which is the occult, which is what people mainly don't understand and don't really know about. So we can see that applying to the whole Buddhist approach. Most people don't understand that. We can see that applying to the ageless wisdom. Most people don't understand that. And they don't understand the ins and outs of most of the computers, the programming part. They all know how to use computers, but they don't understand the esoteric aspect to computers. So can you see how that is forming a picture here?
Yes.
Of that research? And if you say in a previous life you brought, you were into research, you've brought all that energy here with you. It's all being re-emphasized yet again, which is interesting. Okay, so what else did I want to point out to you here? Yes, when Neptune is opposite Venus, usually that's a marker for esotericists in conventional astrology, that that relationship indicates a vulnerability, whether it's in the love life or a vulnerability of taking in strays or feeling sorry for. And usually, not always, but usually one gets burnt in that process because one doesn't see clearly. There's like it's like almost rose-colored glasses. There's like an illusion. There isn't the clarity because of a Neptune to see what it is that I'm in love with or I love. And anyway, you have that relationship, and only you can answer to that. Is that the case for you? Have you found yourself in relationships of then getting hurt because you didn't see it for what it was?
Yes.
Okay. It's that relationship, a combination is there. Okay. Also, I want to point this out to both you and to Victor. Both of you have Jupiter with a retrograde. Now, we don't talk about retrograde very often because we haven't dealt with that, but the retrograde appears like the RX of medicine. And all the outer planets spend half their time retrograde, so there's no point considering those far-off planets, far-off meaning away from the sun, retrograde, because it doesn't have great meaning. But the personal planets, when they are retrograde, we usually do address that. And when it's retrograde in Jupiter, it can mean a few things. One, that see, Jupiter can also represent our belief systems, our philosophy, because don't forget, Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is about higher learning, philosophy, religion, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. So Jupiter's belief system and philosophy and your outlook on life, your viewpoint, your perspective, when it's retrograde, it means it's different than the norm. It's different than the usual everybody else's kind of approach. Would you say that's true for you?
I would think so.
I would think so too. And Victor has to ask himself the same thing. So your philosophy on life, you came in with a slightly different approach to your viewpoint, to your belief system than the average person, and then you took that on and you make it your own.
I would also add that it internalizes it somehow with the retrogrades, and both of them spoke of themselves as being introverts.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's another indicator of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think I've pretty well covered everything I had planned to cover. One more thing here is that your sun is in the 6th house, and so your axis here is 612, and those two axes are the axes of health. So you have to ask yourself, do you have health problems? And if you do, it because there is this axis, the health axis. And yes, it's the house of service, and so is, service is all about, you've talked about that. I don't want to reemphasize what you've already referred to. The ruler's up there on the 11th house. It's still about groups, and so your service is in groups. And then it's in Aquarius, and Aquarius is also service on some level. So the service is being emphasized again and again. But look at the 12th and 6th house axis and think of it in terms of health. Okay.
And I also want to say that although it doesn't show up in Brett's chart, that's exactly what the focus was for both Victor and Yvonne. Both of them were interested in the healthcare aspect. So that's a good access. And, you know, all of you guys have Virgo. And Virgo, the 6th house, the 12th house, Pisces to a lesser extent, they all get involved with the health aspect of it.
And health does not necessarily mean that you're into healing. Health could be your own health. You see, I have my moon in the 6th house, and I always have little issues, and I'm very concerned about my diet and my exercise and my, you know, my well-being. You know, so it plays out. You know, all my little health issues are minor, except for like 5 broken bones. But other than that, you know, all minor. But it's still health. So how does that health axis apply to you? Again, something for you to think about.
Yeah, but that's a whole other discipline in itself. So.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any more comments before we move on, Brett?
No, not
I
really.
do want to say that Mars in Capricorn is exalted. It's in the 4th house, the house of home or the house of ashram, and it means you've got tremendous amount of ambition and a drive to do the work. You're not afraid to do the work. It's an exalted place. I think Michael considers it one of the most important placements for Mars. So you got something good there.
and trine Venus and Taurus.
Venus and Taurus, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Venus and Taurus, you know, you also have the Taurian look to you as well. Just like Yvonne has, you have a Taurian look. So that's interesting how strong the combination of Taurus and Virgo is in people's charts. Sometimes it really manifests physically, and I just find that interesting since we've done the physiognomy, you know,
Right.
we did the physiognomy, so I kind of always have that in the back of my mind. Interesting to see that played out, you know.
Yeah.
It gives us evidence, more and more evidence. Okay, so I'm comfortable. I think we should open this up to the public for questions. We didn't do that after each one since we knew we needed to cover a lot. But let's open it up for questions or comments by anybody in the webinar.
Okay, the attendees, if you have a question or something, raise your hand. The 3 of you guest presenters, you don't have a hand to raise, so you'll just have to unmute yourself and butt in if you have any questions or comments. So far, I don't see any. I've got a question. Okay, hold on a minute here. What is a general meaning for stelliums? A question from Michael. It's an emphasis in the chart. It's 3 or more planets or 4 or more planets in points. Like, let me see, who was it that had, I think it was
Victor.
Yvonne. Okay, yeah, look at Yvonne here. She has 3 things in Virgo, but it's not a stellium because this is a point, and these are the 2 planets. But she has 3 planets outright in Libra, so she has a stellium in Libra. She also has a stellium in the 2nd house because she has 3 planets in the 2nd house. So it's an emphasis on that particular sign or that particular house. You brought that energy with you for the work that you needed to do concerning that sign or house.
And if you go to Victor's, his is all in one sign, all of them in Aries. There
Right,
you go.
all of them in Aries, but again, it's in 2 different houses, so
Right.
it splits the emphasis that way. But yeah, he has 4. So it's an even stronger stellium that he has there. So does that answer your question, Michael?
Yes, it does. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Ray has a question.
Hello.
Hi, Ray.
Hiya. Since joining the Moroya Federation, I noticed that you put the Earth in the chart, always opposite the Sun, I guess. I was just wondering what the interpretation is of that. Is there an esoteric as well as an exoteric meaning behind it?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, BL.
Yes, there is. In reality, of course, the Sun is the center of our universe and it's the Earth that's traveling around. It is always going to be opposite. But we typically, when we use the charts, we use the geocentric version, which basically puts the Earth at the center of it. But you have to understand the relationship of them. And yes, there's both a exoteric connotation and an esoteric connotation. The exoteric is that it's like our most grounded point. It's an Earth-like quality. The esoteric is that it's Ray 3 and that it points to our Dharma along with the esoteric midheaven point. That's also another dharmic point. And Michael takes it one step further, but this is beyond what we're doing. He takes it and adds it to the monadic level, but that would be an initiate and beyond who would have the influence of the monad coming through. So, but I like to put it in the chart. It brings people to awareness of it, and the Earth is the ruler esoterically of Sagittarius. So it's not like we cannot talk about it. It's the same with Vulcan. You know, we don't put Vulcan in the chart because we can't actually pinpoint where it is, but we can come close. Like for a fact, we know that Victor's Vulcan is going to be in Taurus because it's going to be within 8 degrees of the Sun. But we just want to show those esoteric, especially, influences that we've got, and so that's the reason that we added. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, I think it does. Yeah, thanks. So there is a relationship between that and the 10th house in terms of, exoterically, in terms of your career or work. Would that be right in saying that?
Dharmic.
Dharma.
There's a dharmic connection between the 10th house, the purpose of the soul esoterically, and the ashramic affiliation esoterically, and the Earth. But the Earth is more closely related to Sagittarius. It's the esoteric ruler of Sagittarius. And then again, it's always going to be opposite the Sun. So.
Okay.
So it's not so much work related, and it's not so much about your profession, it's about your dharma, or your I don't want to use the word fate, but what is it that you need to really work out, you know, in this incarnation?
Right, kind of your purpose for being here on an esoteric angle, because really, you know, although it's a grounded point exoterically, you really don't begin to feel it until you start looking at it is the wholes and the esoteric interpretations of it.
Right. So would you look at the aspects to it as well, or just the position of it?
Yes, all the above. And the thing is, because it's always going to be opposite the Sun, you're going to have that dynamics of the axis. So you're going to see it in a lot of configurations, because all you need is the one point in, you know, squaring it to square both of them and get the T-square. So it's like the ascendant-descendant axis. It's like the ICMC axis. It's like, we haven't gotten into them yet, we will next time, into the moon nodes. They're always axes, and so the axes have a little more dynamics as far as the aspects go to them.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's good.
You're welcome. We also have another comment here. Let me see. Have no microphone. Once again, I'm delightfully overwhelmed by new information that needs to be absorbed. Well, thank you, Linda. Yep, that's what we hope. We hope that you all learn from the information in each other's chart, because there are just so many nuances that there's no way we can get to in one particular webinar or with one chart. You have to see a variety of them to see how they're all working out. So thank you very much for pointing that out. Okay, anybody else have anything they would like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question about, I've got Uranus in Gemini, and Eva was saying something about health. How does that play into anything? I mean, I see it's sextile to my moon and trine my midheaven, but I don't understand, you know, would that have some sort of play on health?
Well, the only thing I would see is as planets transit and hit it and touch it, or, you know, create an opposition to it or a square to it, it might trigger that. And many times you have Mars-Uranus combination, which could mean a little accident, or, you know, something all of a sudden, Uranus, all of a sudden happening to you in terms of health that you hadn't expected. In that way, I would look at that.
I would also go with it being trine your midheaven and then sextile the Mars and the Moon, and it being Uranus, which is a planet of consciousness. I would ask what got you interested in healing. Was it some kind of sudden event or accident or something? Because this is the consciousness of the service worker, the consciousness of the healer, combined with the Buddhic qualities that you need in esoteric healing. So, and since we know that that is a profession that you're interested in, which ties it in with the midheaven here, can you relate to that?
Yeah, that I had a back injury 25 years ago, and that led to discovering energy healing, which led to studying the ageless wisdom.
Right. So let me see how that works out. Yeah. See, it was either an accident or something sudden that happened.
Right. Yeah. My health is really good now, but it's it all began because of I was virtually crippled, and so I found out energy healing works that way.
Good. You see how it's a beautiful thing when you look at the chart and it substantiates our life. If you know how to look at it, it can give us so much more meaning into who we are, and that's why astrology is just, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to see that it is in fact our thumbprint or our blueprint here on Earth. And it's different in every incarnation. But you always bring with you, you know, traits and qualities and habits and all that kind of stuff, and you always have to work on something new. So next webinar, you want to talk a little bit about that, BL?
Okay. The next webinar is going to be on Friday, 3 October at 8 p.m. And we already have, there's going to be 2 guest presenters for that, and they're already assigned. And we are going to actually add a couple of components. We've touched on, but we haven't actually got to the rays yet. So we're going to add the rays in to the counts that you see on the bottom of the charts. And we're going to talk a little bit about them, provide some slides on that. We're also going to add Chiron. Chiron is a really important entity, and we're going to continue to focus on the big 3, but we just want to add that into your charts and let you see how it works. We've already had a couple of people talk about it because it impacted their chart in ways that we couldn't discuss because we hadn't gotten into it. Chiron is like the bridge between Saturn and Uranus. It's like the bridge acting as the anticorana. It's also another health issue for the 2 of you here that were healing is important to you. It's an indicator of that in our charts, but that's something we're going to get into next time when we go into that. We also have openings available for 1 November. Oops, let me update my slides here. We do need more volunteers. Ray, if you'd like to volunteer to have your chart delineated, let us know. I have the information out there on the Makara website. As a matter of fact, those are the slides that I'm going to attach this time, Brett, to the presentation, is the how to participate slides. So we have 2 openings for 1 November, and unfortunately, if we don't get any more volunteers, we will probably wrap this up on the end of November.
So excuse me, if you want to see this still continuing, pass it on to other fellow students that are in your excuse me, that are in your groups, or post something on Student Union, much like Joe did some time back. Hopefully those that, not everybody reads everything, but maybe other people will read it and get inspired. I have a really strong feeling that a very few number of people know about this. I contacted one student that I had done her chart for, and I said, are you interested in this? I'm sure you'd love to do this. She says, oh, are you actually doing people's charts? So that's how people are not informed, and they don't know. Whether they're not reading everything that comes through on Student Union, I don't know. I just know that not everybody knows about it. So in whatever way, you can pass this information on that you think might help, please do.
And right now we're limiting it to Moira Federation students only, and
Right.
that's part of the reason. If we had opened it up to the public, we don't know what background they've had, what teaching they've had, and we've already, you guys have gone through some of the teaching already, so it is at this point. The webinars, when they're finished, are open to everybody, but the actual participation is limited to Moira Federation students.
Absolutely, yeah. This is for the students.
And I just wanted to say that our the end of November webinar, we will probably be adding in transits and progressions and how to look that up in your chart. If we get a considerable number of volunteers, we'll push that to the January webinar, but right now it looks like that's what we'll be using to wrap up the final thing. And I want to say, I think I mentioned this earlier, because we are adding new things to the October webinar, I will go back to those 6 of you who participated in August and September, and I'll give you the updated information that pertains to you. It was great, those of you who volunteered first in these first 2 webinars, but we don't want to leave you out of the new stuff because of it. So I will be sending you follow-up information to include everything we're going to talk to up through the October webinar. So, okay, before we get ready to end this, any more questions, comments?
Yes, BL and Eva, how about if each mentor encouraged all their students that they mentor to sign up for them? I don't know, some sort of carrot or something, because I hate to see these things go away. I'm just starting.
Okay, the only thing is that
some sort of carrot, for all mentors for their students.
Right. Okay. We'll do that. We have to do that privately in an email as opposed to, I think, right?
Yeah, we'll have to go out to the Moira section, the faculty, and say, hey, please encourage your students to do
Right.
this. But I can do that.
Okay, that'd be good, BL. Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, why don't we do that? Put it out to the faculty and have the faculty then contact their students. Yeah, so we get this chain reaction.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Great webinar, especially to our presenters.
Yes.
Hand of applause. I'm going to unmute everybody so everybody can say bye really quickly, okay?
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
It was great. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye, everybody. Thank you guys for helping
Very,
me.
very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Bye, everybody. I'm in.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.